Getting started in Stalcraft. The Stalcraft tutorial. The Stalcraft tutorial is actually very well made and pretty fun. Pay attention to the prompts that show up on the screen. They will teach you all of the basic controls. It's important to keep in mind that you will not be able to keep any of the items you find during the tutorial, but you can still loot enemy bodies to try out different weapons. Important note, there is no flashlight in Stalcraft, but at this portion of the tutorial it will prompt you to press N. Your new character, even after the tutorial, will have basic NVG, so you always will have some kind of night vision. By the way, don't feel bad if you die during the tutorial. I think I died twice. Enemies in Stalcraft, at least the AI enemies and not players, have very good aim and may notice you from a long distance, but they are not very tactical at all. Factions. When you finish the tutorial with your new character, you'll be given the choice of two different factions, Stalkers and Bandits. These are the two main factions in the game, and if you are a Stalker, all player bandits and NPC bandits will be hostile to you. If you are a bandit, then all Stalkers and NPC Stalkers will be hostile to you. If you make another character, you can make that character a different faction. So if you start out as a Stalker and you want to try bandits, you won't be able to switch with the character you've made, but you can start a new character and make that character a bandit. I believe you can have up to 10 characters, so you can try both factions as long as it's on different characters. There are also sub-factions. On the right-hand side, you can see that if you join Stalkers, then eventually your character may optionally choose to join Duty or Freedom. These are sub-factions. You don't have to join one, but if you do, it can change which other factions are hostile to you. So read up on each one if you think about doing one, but you won't need to decide that with your new character. For bandits, their future recruitment options are Mercenaries or Covenant. So just simply choose which faction you want your first character to be, and then click Join on the right. After you select your faction, your new character will be dropped into a starting village. For this character, I chose Stalker, so I'm in the Stalker base at the south part of the swamps. If you chose Bandit, you'll be at the Bandit base at the north part of the swamps. If you press P to bring up your PDA and click My Faction on the left side, you can get a summary of your faction. In general, and this may depend on what region you're in, but in general, Stalker players tend to be a little more PvE focused and more likely to go out alone or in smaller groups. And Bandit players tend to be more PvP focused and more likely to go out in groups instead of alone. Also, there may be more Stalker players, simply because Stalker fans might be a little bit more likely to choose Stalkers than Bandits, simply because in the main games that's what you were a Stalker. But just keep these things in mind. Open World PvP. Most important thing you must remember about Stalcraft is that you are only safe when you're in a safe zone. At the bottom right of your screen there will be a green bar and message that says there, you are in a safe zone. If that message is not up, then enemy players can kill you at any moment. For any reason. For no reason. it's open world PvP. Luckily, when you do get killed by other players, or by an anomaly, or a mutant, or NPC, you typically won't drop very much unless you were out for too long and was carrying too much. You won't lose your weapons and stuff. You won't lose your armor. But just remember that you can always be killed at any place that's not a safe zone. Now, messages will pop up at the left side of the screen telling you when a player has been killed by another player in the region you're in. I'm currently in Cordon, and if a bandit kills a Stalker here in Cordon, a message will show on the left showing a red name, a skull, and then a green name. If it's a red name, it's an enemy. If it's a green name, it's an ally. So, when I see that message, I can see whether a bandit has killed one of the Stalkers or whether a Stalker has killed a bandit. Once this happens, if it was an enemy that killed one of your allies, you can then check the map. When you press M on the map, any recent PvP death by an ally will show up as a red skull. Right now there are not any showing, surprisingly, but I'm sure one will be here soon enough. That can show you where your ally was when they were killed. As you can see on the left side of the screen, 2 bandits just killed 2 Stalkers, so if I press M to bring up my map, I can see where those were. Wow, there's 3 different recent deaths. Ally death here, it even tells you how long ago your ally died. I'm currently here, so they're not close, luckily. So remember, you can be killed anywhere outside of a safe zone, even if it's the very earliest areas of the game. And when an ally dies, you'll get a message on the left side of the screen, and you can then press M, or at any time press M and look for the red skull. This is a good idea to do fairly frequently. If you have an idea where your allies are dying, it gives you some idea where the enemy is. Although if it was a sniper, they may be pretty far from where the ally died. Nearby player alert. Those beeps. While playing Stalcraft, you will often hear beeps. These are not actually an indication of a nearby anomaly. They are proximity alerts for nearby players. If you look at the minimap in the top right of the screen, you will see a number in the top left corner. Right now it says 4. Now 3. That is a number of players that are nearby, including myself. As I approach this safe zone, the number keeps increasing. Now it's at 6. Each time that number increases or decreases, a beep will sound. This means that when you are out in the wild and you hear a beep, you should definitely look at your minimap, look at the top left, and see how the number has changed. As I leave the safe area, the number is decreasing, and a beep is sounding to let me know that the number is decreasing. The beep for the number increasing is a little bit higher pitch. Now the number says 1. That means that I am the only player nearby, whether friendly or enemy. Nearby is something around 75 meters. Keep in mind that a sniper may be able to kill you from 100 meters or more. So a sniper could still possibly be aiming at me right now. But it doesn't tell me they're nearby because they haven't gotten close enough. That number includes yourself plus all allies and enemies. So oftentimes you'll hear that beeping simply because allies are in the area. But you should never assume that. Losing items when you die. Even though Stalcraft has open world PvP, if you're very careful, you won't usually lose much when you die to another player. This is because all of your equipment and most of your items will be bound to you and will never drop when you die, whether a player kills you or whether you die to something else. You can open your inventory with E and mouse over any of your items. If an item is going to drop when you die, it will say drops upon death. The items here on the right side of the screen say that there's 9mm ammo, there's 5.45 ammo, there's shotgun ammo, these first aid kits, these bandages, this armor plate. All of this stuff will drop when I die, but nothing else will. You can tell also by looking at the icon at the top left of the item, whether it's over here on your equipped items or in your inventory. If an item has a lock symbol on the top left, it's bound to you. It's a bound item. Bound items will never drop when you die. So if I died right now, I wouldn't drop my armor, my homemade NVG, my transformer bag, my weapons, and I won't drop these pouches of ammo that I've brought, and I won't drop this bag of first aid kits. I won't drop this SMG. I won't ever drop quest items. Basically, when you die, you'll drop all your loose ammo, loose first aid kits, loot that you've found in the world, including bartering items, which you want to save. But everything else will still be on your character. You won't lose it. This means that you should definitely go back to town as often as possible, especially when you're low level, to save items, because whether it's a player that kills you, or a mutant boar, or an anomaly, no matter what it is, when you die, you can prevent yourself from dropping very much if you just travel light, return to town often to store or sell loot, and make sure not to unpack ammo until you need it. You'll obviously always need some unpacked, but avoid unpacking a lot of it, because if you die, you'll drop all that loose ammo. World events. In addition to story quests and side quests, Stalcraft has world events. They show up as a red hexagon in the world, or on your map. If they have a flashing outer border, like this one, that means other players are actively participating in that world event. They are basically like random quests you can find out in the world, and it's a primary way that you'll grind for loot and experience and reputation. If I press M and bring up my mini-map, or rather my full map, I can mouse over any of these world events to see details about it. The important thing to look at is the difficulty. This boar hideout has an average difficulty. These mutant layers are simple. You have to get somewhat close to it, and then up here comes one. They will probably find you once you are close enough, as that one did. Just go near the event, look for the mutants, and kill all of them. Other players can do the same, whether they're in your squad or not. And if they do, you may get less rewards because other players participated. They'll get some of the reward as well. You don't have to accept it like you would a quest. You just have to get near the world event and then participate. Once I've completed the world event, I can go up to here, press F, and take all the loot. Loot like mutant parts can be sold to the fence in town. Other kinds of loot may be usable in bartering. That's not how you typically get weapons and armor, though. You'll get those through story quests. That was a mutant lair world event. There aren't any other examples to show you right now, but they come in different flavors. Sometimes it's a distress call, in which case they'll be allied stalkers or bandits if you're a bandit. And they'll be fighting mutants, and you can participate to help try to defend off the waves of mutants. There's another one there, Bandit Camp. I'm a stalker right now, so that's an NPC bandit camp. It's going to be more difficult than a mutant lair. And in fact, if we mouse over it, I have to get closer. If we mouse over it, I can see how difficult it is, but it's going to be above average, I'm pretty sure. Whenever you do a world event, you will get some loot, but you'll also get reputation for the nearest town, which is very important. The higher your reputation, the better items you'll be able to barter for, and the more services you'll have access to. So these world events are your primary PvE grind options. They're always available, and they respawn, but you'll only see the ones that you're nearby. So there are probably ones up here that I don't see because I'm not close enough, and over here. But be careful not to get too close to an enemy base while doing world events. If I stay close to this friendly base and only do world events close to this base, my chances of being killed by a player are much lower. It could still happen, of course, but the chances will be much lower. Anomalies. Anomalies are extremely common in Stalcraft and very dangerous. This anomaly here is a vortex. Here's another vortex. They are very difficult to spot, but they also make a sound effect, so if you're moving slowly and you're listening and watching, you can usually spot them. They may not necessarily kill you immediately, but some of them are inescapable, such as black holes. Once you get too close to a black hole, no matter what you do, you will be sucked in and killed. Some other types of anomalies, you may be able to survive if you can get away before it kills you. For instance, if you're sprinting and you hit a vortex, continue to sprint and try to outrun it. You may be able to escape its gravitational pull. If you encounter a black hole and get too close, you will die. I'm currently in the second region that you'll experience in the game, the Cordon. And this region has a lot of black holes. That's one right there. You can see the visual clues, and I can somewhat hear it, although it's not as loud as some of the other anomalies. Sometimes you'll even encounter two black holes, not that far apart. There are many different kinds of anomalies, but they are all very dangerous. Which is why you typically don't want to sprint everywhere. Unless you're very familiar with the terrain and then where the anomalies are at. Because if you sprint all the time, especially in regions you're not familiar with, you'll probably discover anomalies by wandering too close and either dying or taking a lot of damage. Mutants and NPCs can also be trapped in anomalies. They will try to escape, but usually will fail and die. We can see here that vortex killed the mutant dog there. And right over here I noticed is another anomaly. This may be a trampoline. Maybe not quite as dangerous, but still dangerous. If you are not certain if a path is safe from anomalies, you can press 5 to pull out your bolt. You can right-click to throw it, and if you see that flash, the bolt encountered an anomaly. If you do not, that path is safe. Here is an example of how common anomalies can be, even in early parts of the game. There's an anomaly right there. There's another one right there. Another one right there. Right there. And right over here. I ran into like 2 of these. Oh god, and then there's another one. See, if I hold shift, if I hold sprint, keep moving, I don't think I'm going to make it out of this one. Yeah, I didn't get out fast enough. If I kept going in one direction and held sprint, I could have gotten out. Took me about a minute to run back here, and luckily, nobody took my stuff, so I didn't actually lose anything. Excellent. But as you can see, anomalies are all over the place in Stalcraft. Some anomalies, such as these electrical anomalies, can be temporarily deactivated by throwing a bolt into them. The anomaly comes back after about a second and a half though, so this one we have to deactivate to get past it. If I right click with my bolt and then immediately sprint past it, I'll get through before it comes back. Emissions. Every few hours, an emission will occur. When an emission begins, the sky will turn red, the earth will begin to shake, and most of the people in the chat will start to lose their minds. When this happens, you must immediately seek underground shelter. This could be an underground bunker. It could be an underground area beneath the nearest town. But you must get to an underground shelter and remain there for the duration of the emission, which is about 5 minutes. If you're caught outside, you will slowly die. If you don't know where the nearest underground shelter is, either head to the nearest town or follow the other players. Hopefully they know where the nearest underground shelter is and they're already heading that way.
Hey, Stalker.
After an emission, about 20 or 30
Stalker.
minutes later, artifacts will spawn near
Well done,
existing
Stalker.
anomalies.
That's
Artifacts
real,
are
and
glowing
Stalker,
objects
don't
that
do that.
you can sell for quite a bit of money, or you can possibly equip them to give yourself special properties. So after an emission has concluded, you can go out into the worlds, look for some anomalies, and after 20 or 30 minutes, new artifacts should start to spawn near those. Artifacts are pretty rare though, so don't expect to find any on your first try. Voice chat. Only available in a squad. Unfortunately, Stalcraft does not have proximity voice chat. But there is built-in voice chat that you can use with members of your squad. To invite a player to your squad, you can approach the player, press F, and click Invite to Squad. Once they are in your squad, their name will show up on the left side of the screen. Then you can press O to speak in voice chat to your squad mates. Selling loot. Once you've found some mutant parts after doing some world events, and you want to sell them in town, you need to find a fence. The fence character will show up on your minimap when you zoom into the town by this symbol here. In this case, here in the garages at the Stalker base, I can go down these stairs to this underground bunker area and find the fence here. You'll know you found the fence because that same currency symbol will show up right here. You can then click that and sell some items to the fence for money. The fence will buy artifacts and mutant parts and also some of the assorted components that you'll find as you loot and explore the world. The fence will not buy ammo, med kits, food, weapons, and other similar items. To find out if an item can be sold to a fence, just mouse over it. It will say, "Can be sold to a fence" in the description. Most of the time it's mutant parts you'll be selling to the fence. So these 8 items here are mutant parts, so if I hold shift and left click each of these, I can put them into the merchant's inventory, and then at the bottom I just click sell. In this case I'm going to get 1922 rubles. And there we go. Remember, only certain items can actually be sold to a fence. If you find loot that you can't sell to the fence, you could either use it yourself, give it to a friend, or bring up your inventory with E, and at the bottom click personal storage, and put the items there. I'll cover personal storage a bit more in a moment. There is also an auction house where you can sell and buy items with other players, but you won't have access to this at the first village. You'll have to wait until you've gotten farther into the game. Once you have, you can look at the map, zoom in on the town you're at, and look for this symbol here, the auctioneer. In this case here in the garages in the Stalker base, the auctioneer is here. By hunting mutants, bringing their mutant parts back to a fence, and selling them, you can save up a decent amount of rubles. But you don't necessarily need rubles to get better equipment. You can use rubles to buy some equipment, but most of the time to get better equipment you will either do story missions or use the bartering system. Bartering for better equipment. Just by doing the story quests, you'll receive several weapons and eventually even some better armor through quest rewards. But if you want to buy a weapon that is not available as a quest reward, you'll have to use the bartering system. Bartering is done with a certain NPC. If you zoom in on your map, the bartering NPC will show up as a handgun icon. They're called the Merchant of Gear. Find this NPC and speak to them. Select the top option, and it opens the barter tree. Right now we're on the assault rifle category. You can left click and drag up or down and left or right. The left side of the tree is where you will start, and as you get farther into the game you'll be able to barter for better and better weapons, armor, and equipment. All of that's found further and further down the right. On the top left here, under barter tree, you can select a category. There's categories for weapons, categories for armors, and a category for other items. All of these have interesting and useful stuff in there, but once again, you don't necessarily need to grind a lot of money to get them. You may need a little bit of money, an earlier type of weapon, so don't get rid of your old weapons, plus some bartering materials. In the swamps where you first start, the bartering materials you will find are green mold and swamp stone. As you get further along, you'll start finding seeds and stinky root. You'll know if an item is used for bartering because at the bottom of the description it will say used for bartering, and then in parentheses it will tell you where you need to go to barter with it. These barter items can be sold to a fence for a little bit of money, but I do not recommend it. Instead, you should save them for yourself to upgrade your weapons, buy new equipment and accessories. Or, if you end up with more than you need, you can sell the extra on the auction house to other players. If I go back and talk to the bartering NPC again, click the top option, we can see that where I'm at in the game right now is known as the garages. And here in the garages, one of the options I have for bartering is the AKS-74. If I click here, I can view info about the AKS-74, all of its stats, including how much damage it does at various distances. Weapons are not effective at long range typically unless it's a long range rifle. Here you can open a preview. This can show you what the weapon looks like, but also what types of attachments it might be able to take. To the right of that, if you click go, you can go into the bartering interface. In here at the top left, we can see the result. This is what we will get in AKS-74. Below that is the items needed section. This is what we must barter or give to the NPC in order to get the AKS-74. In this case, they require an AKS-74U, 13 stinky root, 16 seeds, and a cost of 2,000 rubles, or just over 2,000. If I put all of those things into this interface, I could click the buy button down here, and it will expend the seeds, the stinky root, and the AKS-74U that I put in there, and in return I'll get the AKS-74. Because of this, you should always save your old weapons. You can keep them in your personal storage. There's plenty of space in there, because you may need it to barter for the next weapon up. There are also sometimes multiple offers. At the top here you can see we are on offer 1. That's the standard one. Let's say you don't have an AKS-74U, but you have a lot of stinky root and seeds. You could try the second offer. Doesn't require the AKS-74U, but it requires more stinky root and more seeds. And also costs a little bit more on the rubles. There's a third offer, which is for a different version of an AKS-74, as well as just a little bit of stinky root and a little bit of seeds, and only 110 rubles. So sometimes you'll have more than one option for what you can barter to get the better weapons. When you select a category up here, you can scroll along and see at the top where you will have to go and how high you'll have to get your reputation level with that area before you can barter for those items. I'm currently in the garages. The next area I can barter at is the bar, at least for this category. Do not neglect the other categories. I did that for the first 20 hours or so that I played this. In the backpacks section, you can get a new type of backpack once you reach level 3 your reputation at Adamant's HQ. That's if you're a Stalker. It'll be a different name for the location if you're a bandit. Just go to that location, achieve that level of reputation, and then you can barter for any of the things underneath there. This one just is a backpack that gives you a little bit more carrying weight and may deplete your stamina a little bit faster, or a little bit slower. Maybe that means it's a light backpack. In the backpack section, I think you can also get these containers for holding artifacts, radioactive artifacts. That way you don't take as much radiation damage while you're bringing them back to town. In this other categories, you'll also find things like silencers. Down here at the bottom under other, you'll find sights. These can obviously make a weapon much more enjoyable and effective to use, but it's obviously not required. But they are nice to have. You'll see under the armor category there are different types as well. Combat, Explorer, Combo, and Scientist. These are useful for different situations. Combat armors usually have a lot of bullet protection or a lot of melee protection. So they're awesome for PvP. Or the ones that provide melee protection are good for fighting melee mutants. Explorer gives you a little bit more storage capacity, I believe, and not as much bullet protection. Combo is what is recommended by most players if you're just not sure what category to get, because it's a nice blend of some bullet resistance and some protection from anomalies and radiation and mutants. It's kind of a best of both worlds. Obviously not as effective in each of those categories, but it's a good mix, so it's a good general use category. And the Scientist category are your chemical suits, your radiation suits, type of armors that have almost no bullet protection and almost no protection from melee mutants, but provides excellent protection against electricity, thermal, fire, radiation, and so on. Some of these Scientist armors will be needed to get to certain places or certain areas. So you may eventually need it even if you plan on doing PvP. You'll just switch to Scientist armor when you're having to go in a very dangerous, hazardous area. And then switch back to Combat or Combo when you have to do some PvP or PvE and PvP. Very important note. This trips up a lot of players when they get higher level. If you want to grind and grind and grind to get exosuit armor, which I think is this one, maybe. You may not want to do that. Not through buying it or bartering it, because you can actually get an exosuit from completing story missions, I believe. Obviously you have to get pretty far along before you'll do a story mission that'll give you exo armor. But it's much better way to get it than saving up all of the resources to barter for it. Personal storage. There is an extremely useful feature in Stalcraft known as the personal storage. Your personal storage is basically your safe stash. A place where you could save items for later, and you'll know that they'll always be there. No one can steal them. You won't lose them when you die. They'll just be waiting in your stash. To access your personal storage, you must be in a safe zone, like a large base. Press E to bring up your inventory, and at the bottom click Personal Storage. On the left, you'll see whatever items are in your personal storage. I currently have a lot of junk in here. And you can see that it's a very large stash tab. Even as a free player, you'll get additional stash tabs as you play through the game. I've got 2 so far. I'll get my 3rd one when I reach level 5 reputation here at the garages, which is pretty soon. Currently I'm using my 2nd tab to store old weapons and armor, and my 1st tab to store everything else. One of the earliest story missions you do will prompt you to open the personal storage, and when you do, you'll see that a lot of stuff will already be in there. Like these crates of grenades, these bags of first aid kits, some ammo, some bandages. So they start you off actually with quite a bit of starting equipment. So you don't have to buy all the first aid kits that you're going to need and all the ammo. You'll get a decent supply to start out with. You don't have to speak to any particular NPC to access your personal storage. You just need to be in the safe zone. and you can press E to open your inventory and click personal storage at the bottom. You can do this in any of the major safe zones, and in fact it's the same personal storage for all of them. So for instance, if you are at the starting village and you've stored some things in your personal storage, and then you travel further in the game and get here to the Cordon region and go to the town and open your inventory and click personal storage, you'll see the same items that you stored. It's the same stash. So this means you don't need to travel with all of this stuff to a different town when you decided to relocate further into the game. Just throw all the stuff in your personal storage, and then when you get to the new town, you can open it up again and all the stuff will be there. What I personally like to do after I've saved up or farmed some mutant parts is take them back to town as soon as possible, come into the safe zone, press E to bring up my inventory, click personal storage at the bottom, and throw those mutant parts in there. You can shift left click to move items from or into the storage. And then I'll just go right back out and kill some more mutants. Once I've gotten a decent amount of parts, I'll come back to town, store those in my personal storage, until I've got a decent amount and I feel like actually going all the way over to the fence, opening my personal storage, getting out those mutant parts, and then selling them to the fence. This is just one way that you can use personal storage to make things a little bit easier on you. Quick access. Hold C key. Another extremely useful feature in Stalcraft is the quick access wheel. By default, this is bound to the C key. If I press and hold C, the wheel comes up. If you've never assigned anything to these numbers, all of these will be blank. To assign a weapon or a piece of equipment to your quick access wheel, just open your inventory, mouse over the item, and press the number that you want to assign it to. For example, I assign first aid kits to number 1, bandages to number 9, several of my weapons to 2, 3, 4, and 5, and some of the ammo pouches to 7, 8, 6, 7, and 8. Yes, you can even assign ammo pouches to the quick access wheel. This way I can hold C, mouse over the type of ammo I need more of, and it will unpack that ammo right away without having to open the inventory. Same thing for if you're bleeding and you need to use a bandage, or you are low health and you need to use a first aid kit. You can do so much quicker by holding C, mousing over the item you need, or the weapon you want to switch to, and it'll switch right away. You can even tap C instead of pressing and holding to quickly use a first aid kit if you have one in your inventory. So technically I don't have to assign it to the number 1 key. I could free that up and use it for something else if I can remember just to tap C to use my first aid kit. As you can imagine, the quick access wheel is extremely useful when you're out in the world and you need to unpack more ammo, use the first aid kit, switch weapons, and you don't want to take too much time doing so, which will increase your chances of getting shot by another player. You can do it on the move by holding C and mousing over the item. You can also hold C and press the corresponding number if that's easier for you. If I hold C and press 5, it pulls my assault rifle back out. Thank you for watching this video on getting started in Stalcraft. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you found something useful in it. If you did, please consider clicking the like button. I don't usually ask for that kind of thing, but it can make a huge difference for a small channel like mine. It really can. But only if you actually liked it and found it useful. If you see me in the game, I play on the North American server, say hello. Send me a friend invite or even a party invite. If I have time, I'll join your party, fight alongside you, for as long as I have. Maybe we'll kill some mutants together. Thanks again. This has been Mr. Axebane. Have a great day.